Hey everyone, welcome to Breakthrough Conversations. My name is Danielle Perry and I'm the host. You already know I am so excited that you're tuned in today. And if this is your first time, this is a podcast which features people of all ages and they share a bit of their story about how God has helped them to overcome a difficult challenge, situation, or a season in their lives, or maybe they're on their way to overcoming with God's help and they do share authentically. Well, y'all, as always, I'm so excited about the guests that come across this podcast. And this guest is none other than Mrs. Stacey Belgrave. And the title of this episode, which is episode 25, it's titled Unsaved Single Mom of 4 to Saved Married Mom of 5. Yes, it's a loaded episode. And again, Stacey, thank you so much for just sharing a bit of your story on this podcast. And for those of you who don't know, Stacey and I actually connected through my grandmother. One day, my grandmother said, hey, there's a woman who I pray alongside on a prayer conference call line, and I would like for her to pray with you if that's okay. I'm going to check in with her to see if that's okay. And I'm just like, okay. I trust my grandmother. We ended up praying, and can I say, y'all, she prayed so powerfully for me. This was actually the year of the pandemic. This was 2020, so y'all already know, right? But she prayed for me, y'all, and it was so powerful. She said so many things to me, y'all, that were prophetic, and it was clear that she's definitely an intercessor. And she has also prayed for me on other occasions, and each time, y'all, it's been so powerful. So again, Stacey, thank you so much. You're a busy woman. You're married. You have 5 children, but yet you've taken time out over the years to just pray for and with me. So I thank you so much. And your prayers have actually pushed me just on another level when it comes to how I pray for others. So I don't know if I ever shared that with you, but again, just thank you for your example. And also, y'all, there were some technical difficulties. This was my first time doing a recording remotely. And so you may hear some issues with the sound. And also visually, the last 15 minutes of this episode, sad to say, Stacey was cutting in and out. Her picture on her end was cutting in and out. And so, but I hope still that that's not a distraction to you and that you'll still be able to be blessed and enjoy this episode. So here it is, y'all. Without further ado, episode 25. Enjoy and be blessed. Mrs. Stacey Belgrave on today. Hey, Stacey.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
I'm well. I'm well. Considering all that's been taking place, I'm well. God is good.
Amen.
So I have you on today to talk about, well, the title of this episode is Unsaved Single Mom of 4 to Saved Married Mom of 5. So we're going to delve into just a little bit of your story. But before we do, I want you to introduce yourself to our viewers and just share a little bit about who you are.
Okay. Hi, my name is Stacey, and I have 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls. And I am married to a wonderful man for 7 years. And I am also a business owner.
Okay. And is it okay if we shout out your business at the end?
Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So we're going to go ahead and hop into the questions. And I want to first ask you, before you became pregnant with your first child, just talk to us a little bit about just where your life was at that point.
Well, before I became pregnant with my first child, I didn't know the Lord. So I was getting by life, just taking it one day at a time. Didn't have a relationship with the Lord, know of the Lord, but didn't have a relationship with God.
Okay. So didn't really know God. And at what age were you when you entered into a relationship with your child's father?
I was 21.
21?
Yes.
Okay. And what was that relationship like? Talk about that a little bit.
At first it was good. We met at a party, and one of the first thing I always ask people when I meet them is, are you in a relationship? And I clearly remember him saying no, he does not have a girlfriend. So as we begin to get serious, along the line, and that's before I found out I was pregnant. I was pregnant but didn't know it. Then he said, well,
Mm.
I have a girlfriend. I'm like, well, you didn't say that to me. But
Mm.
I was so into the relationship at that time and so into him, I didn't end it, even though at that time I found out that he had a girlfriend.
Got you. Okay. Now, you said that you found out you were pregnant. Did you find out he had a girlfriend when you got pregnant? After you found out you got pregnant, or before?
I I found out that he had a girlfriend before I knew I was pregnant. I was pregnant but didn't know it. But he told me that at that time
Got
he
you.
had a girlfriend. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, when you found out you were pregnant, talk about your emotions.
At that time it was mixed emotions because after we found out that we were pregnant, he said he was going to go talk to the girl, and he thought that, well, he would have ended with her and be with me. So my hopes was up because then that's what I really wanted. I wanted to be with him so that we can have this
Mm-hmm.
child together. However,
Mm-hmm.
he
Mm-hmm.
chose to be with her. So I was left alone,
Mm-hmm.
just being pregnant.
Yeah. Yeah. And how far along in your pregnancy were you at that point?
I was about 2 months, so it was pretty fresh, pretty
Pretty pretty
new.
fresh. Okay. Um Now I remember you sharing just there was quite a bit of drama with his girlfriend at the time, and throughout your pregnancy, you saw God's protection throughout all of that.
Yes.
So just talk a little bit about that.
Um, Once the young woman find out that I was pregnant, I mean, it was ridiculous because she would come to my apartment, she would leave notes at my door, leaving my name, and calling me all these names. And it had time that I was fearful
Mm,
for my life because I didn't know when I stepped out of my apartment what to expect, because one day I was going to work, and at that time I was about 5 months because I was already showing. And on my way to
okay.
work, she was at my door, standing at my door, and she was telling me, well, why can't we go inside and talk? And God just sent someone that I knew. And normally he would meet me at the bus stop, the guy that I know, and he works right where I used to work. So he came out the
Mm-hmm.
same time and he was like, are you okay, Stacey? I'm like, no, like she's trying to get at me because she wanted to fight.
Right.
Her whole thing is
Wow.
that she wanted the baby to be gone. No matter what, she just wanted this child to be
Wow.
gone.
She was willing to fight you while you were pregnant
Yes,
because she wanted the baby to be gone.
yes, yes. To the point where
Wow.
she would call me at the midnight hours, stressing me. I used to have to take my phone off the hook in order to get a good night rest. That's how terrible it was. It was really bad. It was really bad. But I thank God for his protection. Going to my doctor visit, I can recall not one of my doctor visits that I ever had high blood pressure. The baby was never in stress where I had to
Mm-hmm.
go into early labor. It was none of that. God truly kept me.
Yeah.
He really did.
Wow. 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 Praise God. Praise God. So you have your baby, your daughter,
Yes.
um, and talk about a little bit just when you saw her face for the first time. What were you feeling at that point? And also, was her father, was he a present father?
When she was born, he was not there, but his mom was. I thank God for his mom because once he shared it with her, that I was pregnant. I never met her at that time. I knew it's like his brothers, but never met his mom because his mom knew the girl. So,
Mm-hmm.
he really didn't introduce me to his mom. But when I became pregnant, he went and he told his mom, and she said that, well, if this child is yours, I'm going to be there for the baby. And she was. She was there
Wow.
more than he was. I mean, she was like the
Mm-hmm.
the grandmother that was present, that whatever you need, she was there. Even during the time
Mm-hmm.
of birth, she was the one that was there, standing in the gap for him. Um,
Wow.
but once I saw my daughter's face, it was like I felt like the pain that I went through, it was worth it. Because
Mm.
prior to me having my daughter, I remember asking the Lord, I said, God, I don't feel love. And I want to have a child that will love me and for me to love this child. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so the Lord granted me my request. And without
Mm-hmm.
me even asking him for a girl, that was really what I wanted. Because even during the
Mm-hmm.
pregnancy, I didn't know that she was a girl. They keep saying, oh, they can't see.
Okay.
Even with the ultrasound, they're not sure. So even in that, the Lord
Gotcha.
surprised me. But
Mm-hmm.
in me asking the Lord for a child, just to love me and for me
Mm-hmm.
to love the child, um,
Mm-hmm.
what I didn't ask the Lord, I wasn't specific. Well, God, I want the father to be in the life, be in the child's life. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be married. I wasn't specific. So, based on
Right.
that prayer, I've learned how to ask the Lord specific, being specific in my prayers, because I know
Mm-hmm.
of Him, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a relationship with the Lord at that time.
Right. Right. Wow. Wow. I think it's definitely a blessing that her grandma stepped in
Yes,
and was a true grandma,
yes,
to her and helped you out,
yes.
because her father wasn't an active father, and so that's a blessing. Now, talk about just the provisions of God with your daughter because your child's father wasn't around. Talk a little bit about how God provided for you during that time.
The Lord had put people in my life that would just bless me. I remember not having to
Mm-hmm.
buy any clothing for my daughter because I was working with a coworker, and it was like he took my daughter on as his own, and I didn't have a relationship with him, but
Mm-hmm.
whenever she needed anything, Pampers and wipes and clothes, I mean, from name brand clothes, he would just
Okay.
buy it. So I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to worry about anything. And even when I was pregnant with my daughter, I lost my job. I was 5 months and they fired me. They fired
Mm-hmm.
me. So I was a single mom, no job.
Mm-hmm.
But the Lord
Mm-hmm.
blessed me that I was able to get unemployment. And the unemployment was more than enough to pay for the bills that I have. But the Lord will put
Mm-hmm.
people in my life to take care of my daughter. Like her grandmother was there after my daughter was born. Then her father started to be there a little bit. He started to come around, but he didn't
Okay.
really had to buy much because the Lord made sure that she was provided for. I really didn't want for
Mm-hmm.
nothing.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. What a blessing. What a
Amen.
blessing. And you were 22 at the time?
Well, I was 22 when I was pregnant, but when she was born I was 23.
23.
Mhm.
My mom had me at 20. Well, she had me at 22. Yep,
Okay.
she had me at 22. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. So, we're going to fast forward just a couple years. Your daughter's now 2 or 3 years old, and you got pregnant again.
Yes.
So, I want you to describe the events that took place around that time.
Well, once I had my daughter, I said I wasn't gonna have no other kids because the labor was intense, but
Mm-hmm.
after seeing her, it was worth it. So I
Mm-hmm.
got reconnected with one of my ex, and he was my very first boyfriend. And he
Mm-hmm.
was in Barbados at that time, and I
Okay.
don't know how I got in contact with him, but we started talking, and I went to visit him in Barbados. I had no intentions of having no other child, but so
Mm-hmm.
I went, and when I came back, I found out that I was pregnant. And
Okay.
I asked the Lord, God, I want a boy, because if I'm gonna have this child, a boy and a girl, I'm set. I don't need no no other
No
kids.
more.
And the Lord, He granted me my request. So I was pregnant, and I have a son.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
it was challenging at that time because again,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a single mother now, not of just one child, but of two children and no father,
Mm-hmm.
because he's all the way in
Yeah.
Barbados. Is not of he couldn't be of much help to me, so I was just there
Mm-hmm.
again. But again, the Lord
Mm-hmm.
provided. He had put people in my life that supported me. Again, the same person that
Mm-hmm.
took care of my daughter, no relationship, no strings attached. Um, he took on my son too as his own, and was just buying stuff,
Wow.
whatever it is that we needed. And I could, I was assured that every holiday, he will make sure that he sent a check to make
Wow.
sure that we have a meal on our table.
Uh-huh.
So the Lord
Uh-huh.
really, I
Uh-huh.
mean, he provided. The Lord provided. There was nothing
Wow.
that the kids needed. Nothing.
Wow. 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 Okay. Okay. So at some point, I believe while your children were still very young,
Yeah.
you said you brought your mom from Guyana to
Hmm.
America,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
So talk about what led to that decision and what happened when your mom arrived.
Well, I brought my mom because I wanted a better life for her because Guyana is, certain parts is a little poor. So I just wanted to give her that opportunity to leave, Guyana and to come to America
Mm-hmm.
to have a better life. She came and I would say about 6 months into her being here, she got sick. Really sick to the point that I had to take her to the emergency room, and she was intubated for about, I would say about a week, unconscious, couldn't talk, they were afraid that she was
Mm-hmm.
going to die. And I remember praying and asking the Lord, I said, God, if you bring her back to life, I said, I promised you that I would take her wherever it is that you need me to take her, that she can testify of the goodness of God. And God brought
Mm-hmm.
her back to life. She started talking, she started
Wow.
walking, but I didn't held
Mm-hmm.
up my part of the bargain. So I had to repent for that, because God is
Mm-hmm.
faithful to do his part, but sometimes we fall through in doing ours. So when,
Absolutely.
when she got out the hospital, she was fine. So I took her back to Guyana where she saw her mom, and she stayed there for about a year. On
Mm-hmm.
her return, it wasn't even about a month, and she got sick again, and I had to rush her to the hospital again. And this time when they intubate her, she never got back up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember the doctor and this social worker, and even until this day, the social worker is still my friend, and the way that she referred to me is based on that conversation in that room. And
Mm-hmm.
being a single mother, an only child, it was a lot of responsibility. So they took me in the room and they
Yeah.
said to me, well, you know, she's not going to live. We just want to make her comfortable. We suggest that you put her in hospice so that she can go smoothly, and, so that she wouldn't have to suffer. And I said to
Mm-hmm.
them, I said, do you believe in God? I don't even know what I was talking about. I said, do you believe in God? They said, yes. I said, well, God didn't, God, I'm not God, and I can't take her life. I said, and I believe that
Mm-hmm.
God will raise her up from this bed. And that conversation caused the social worker, I didn't know she was saved. She was a woman of God at that time. But once the doctor left the room, she gave me a hug and she said, thank you for standing up, because many would have crumbled in that situation. Um,
Mm.
but at that time, the Lord didn't take my mother home. They
Mm-hmm.
thought that she
Okay.
wasn't going to live, but she lived about 5, 6 months after. So she lived to see her
Mm.
50th birthday, and after that, the Lord took her home. So it wasn't on their timing,
Mm.
it was on his timing.
Right, right. Wow, wow. And I think sometimes we get discouraged when, someone near and dear to our hearts loses their life,
Yes,
right?
yes,
But when God even extends the time
yes,
from what man originally said,
yes,
what a doctor said, they're a
yes.
professional, right? They
That's
they
true.
sh- they should know their stuff,
Yes,
but God's timing always prevails.
absolutely,
Right. So,
absolutely.
so yeah. So you also shared with me that you saw how the Lord took care of your children because you were going in and out of the hospital, caring for her, making sure everything was good with her. But, your children, where are they?
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
God's provided and he protected. So talk about that.
um with the kids at that time, I had, yeah, it was two kids, still my son and my daughter. And
Mhm.
going to the hospital at first was kind of challenging, but the Lord put people in place where I was able to ask the babysitter. She was in the same building. I just had to take him downstairs, and she didn't charge me not a dime. And I would go and I would take care of my mom. And the people at the hospital, they would say, you're such a good daughter. They would always encourage me because they said that people will drop their family members and just leave. But I
Mm,
watched the hand of God, even in that. They didn't know what was going on at home. They just saw me there being
right.
faithfully coming every day, you know, praying with her because I was believing that God was going to raise her up from that bed. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
even with at that time, I started working another job. The Lord had opened up an opportunity for me to get a job, and this job was paying more than enough. So at that
Okay.
job, the Lord connected me with another person, and this person at that time I didn't have a vehicle, and they allow
Mm-hmm.
me to drive their vehicle, and they will come and stay with my kids, and I didn't have to be concerned about them, you know, attacking my kids in any which way. That I know they were safe. So God, I
Right.
mean, God will put people in place to bless us, even when we don't think of it. He already have
Yeah.
everything lined up. We just gotta trust him.
Yeah. 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 And the fact that you were so trusting in God at that point in your life, because you said your relationship with God still wasn't quite there, right?
It's true. It wasn't.
But you saw the hand of God.
Yeah,
The Bible says he reigns on the just and the unjust.
absolutely
But
true.
the fact that he provides for us
Yeah.
when we have no type of relationship with him is
Yes,
just amazing.
that's true.
So, wow. So I want you to, okay, so at this point, your children are how old?
My daughter was, I want to say 6, and my son was 2
Okay. Okay. Your daughter was 6 and your son was 2. Okay. So you're about in your, what, late 20s, maybe?
at that time. Yes,
Okay.
I was
Okay.
about,
And that's a lot to,
yeah, I think I was about 26, 27, somewhere around there, if I'm not mistaken.
okay. Okay. Wow. I was going to say that's a lot to bear
That
your
is,
in your
yes,
20s.
yes, yes. It was the late
Wow.
20s, yes,
Wow.
late 20s. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So, talk to us about when you became pregnant with your third child.
With my third child, I actually went home to bury my mom, and that was in Guyana. So when I went home, my boyfriend at that time, he went home as well, which was my second son's father. And
Mm-hmm.
while we were there, I got pregnant with my third son. I came back and I really, really, really wasn't ready for another child because I'm like, God, it's challenging with just two because, with a single parent, you don't get much break, you know. You're, there's no, well, I need a break, Lord. Well, can you send? I didn't had
Right.
anybody to ask. Well, can you watch them for me for about a week and so a week or so I can get a? I didn't have that, so I'm like, God, 3 kids.
Right.
I'm really not ready for this. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I had my son, and even in that time, I had lost my job. Well, I just actually allowed them to fire me because the job was kind of stressful. Um, so
Okay.
I allowed them to fire me, and I thank God they did not deny me unemployment. So the unemployment held us over, and we have more than enough. With my third child,
Mm-hmm.
I had
Mm-hmm.
to look for a job because the unemployment had ran out. I got a job, and the job was only $11 an hour with 3 kids.
Wow.
And I remember applying
Wow.
for food stamps, and I only think it was like 20 something dollars a month. Like, I'm like, God, how can I live off of this? But the Lord, I
Right.
mean,
Right. Right.
again, God provided. I was able to, my dad was there to help, take the kids to school, and, the daycare, the lady in the building, she would watch the kids, and, it wasn't expensive. I thank God for that. But
Mm-hmm.
even in that, the Lord
Mm-hmm.
showed me favor. And the same person again, the same guy again, no strings attached. he took care of number three, the
Mm-hmm.
Pampers, whatever it is that we need. I
Wow.
mean, God is amazing. He will put people in our lives when there's a need. Whenever there's a need, because he promised he'll supply all of our
Wow.
needs. He didn't say how. We just gotta trust that he will. So that same person,
That's
he
right.
would take us out to eat. He would take me to the mall and say, just get whatever it is that they need, and it was stuff name brand. There was
Wow.
no like, well, I can't afford now. You got three kids and they're not mine. It was none of that. It was none of that. He didn't expect
Right.
anything.
Right.
It's like the Lord just used them just to bless me. So with three kids, it was a challenge, but God provide. When I say challenge, as far as me not getting a
Wow.
break, you know, three kids, all of them are young.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, but God
Mm-hmm.
definitely provided. He made ways. He really did.
Wow. 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 Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, as far as your two younger children,
Mhm.
did they have a relationship with their father, even though he was clearly out of the country? Was there a relationship maintained at least over the phone at all?
At that time I was still with him, so yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a relationship. Not the way that I wanted it to, but he would call.
Okay. Okay. So, at some point down the road, you meet an employee, a fellow employee at a job. I don't know if it's your job that you're at currently or if it's a new job, but you said that you came in one day and you found out that he quit.
Yeah.
But you somehow was able to connect with him. So just talk to us about that.
Well, I was working at the car rental place, and
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing this young man, and something about him kind of like it was different. So I said to him, I said, uh, where are you from? So he said, New York. So we would,
Mm-hmm.
talk, but he was in a relationship at the time, and I was in a relationship with my son's father.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember leaving to go to Barbados, and when I came back, they said that he quit, and I'm like, what? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
this one young lady, she said, well, I don't know exactly what happened. I know him and the manager had a little altercation, and he just walked out because he didn't want to,
Mm-hmm.
put his hand on the manager. So I was like, oh, okay. So I said, she was like, I have his number if you want to call and ask. And me being nosy, I was like, sure. I'm thinking I'm just calling just to ask, and that's it. So when I
Right.
call, he was telling me what happened, and I was like, oh, okay. So if eventually we continued to keep talking and talking, and it eventually got into a relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
that is actually my husband at this time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Because
we're still.
you saw something. You saw something.
it,
You didn't know
it was
what.
just something that is true. I didn't know what I did. It was just
Mm-hmm.
strange. And at that time, we
Yeah.
were still in Jersey. And what kind of strike me is like, you've never come to New York. You never came to New Jersey before because he's from New York. What
Mm-hmm.
made you come to New Jersey the first time you came to Jersey to work? You've never worked in Jersey. I'm like, God, that seemed kind of weird, but
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Wow. Wow. So you said that you noticed there was something different about him.
hmm
And like you said, eventually you did become pregnant with your fourth child, right?
Yes.
Now you both are still in the relationship with your fourth child. And you said that, I think you said someone at your job saw you pregnant and they said something to you that made you go, oh, wow. What was that?
Well, I was in Jersey still, and my
Mm-hmm.
the super building, he said, you never see you with no guy, but you just see you pregnant. And I felt embarrassed because, who wants to be known as something like that? All you see is just babies popping up, but no man. That says
Mm-hmm.
something about me. So I felt
Mm-hmm.
embarrassed, and pride kicked in, and I'm like, okay, God, I'm not, at that time I was pregnant. I'm like, I'm not gonna have this child in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I just gotta move. So we talked
Mm-hmm.
about it, and we decided, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna move to Pennsylvania. So I packed the stuff up, and he was like, well, we're not gonna take no furnitures or anything. We're just gonna start off fresh. So we took our
Mm-hmm.
clothes and the kids and pack up and moved to Pennsylvania. I thank God, because even in that he showed favor. It was a 3-bedroom apartment, $750, and for the length of time that I stayed in that apartment, the rent never raised, not a penny. The Lord locked in
Wow.
that price for seven
Wow.
years. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I watch how pride, I've learned after, when I look back, how pride can
Mm-hmm.
push you out of position, because you're more concerned about what people say instead of asking God, well, God, what are you saying? So it
Right.
pushed me out of place. At that time, I didn't know it, because again, I still didn't know God. I know of Him,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with Him. So we
Right.
moved, and I thank God, because God allowed me to transfer with my job. They had a position open. However, the
Mm-hmm.
schedule was late at night, 1:30 to 10. But because I
Mm-hmm.
was in need of a job, I'm like, okay, this will have to work. So I took the
Mm-hmm.
job, and I took the transfer, and I came
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to,
Now, I remember you said that even though now that you have, your child's father there, right?
yes,
You still felt like a single parent.
yes,
And I think it was because you said that he was working a lot and you guys' work schedules were different,
yes,
right?
yes,
So talk about that. Like you're with this guy and he's parenting and he's there, but you still feel like a single parent. So
yes.
what was going on at that time?
Well, he was still back and forth to New York, because he was working in New York, and could not find a job to transfer him that would pay him enough money.
Mm-hmm.
So he would stay in New York practically about all week, and then come on the weekend. So me, I was pregnant, I think about 8 months at that time when I moved to Pennsylvania, and 3 young kids. So it was challenging. It
Mm-hmm.
was very challenging with the
Mm-hmm.
schedule. At that time, picking them up from babysitters, sometime 11 o'clock at night, to bring them home for them to get ready for school in the
Mm-hmm.
morning. But
Mm-hmm.
even with daycare, it was challenging, because moving to Pennsylvania, I really didn't know anybody really that I can truly depend on to say, well, can you
Mm-hmm.
watch the kids? So I felt like I'm doing this thing, even though I'm in a different state, I'm doing it all over
Mm-hmm.
again. And now it's not
Mm-hmm.
just 3 kids, it's 4. So it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
challenging at that time. I see God, but it's like the help that I had before, it's not there, because my dad now is in Jersey. So it's like I don't have him to really take the kids to school. I have to get up in the morning with a big belly, and taking them
Mm-hmm.
to school, and then coming back home and trying to rest to go to work for 1:30. And it was challenging. It was really
Yeah.
challenging. But
Wow.
nevertheless,
Wow.
God brought me through.
Yes. Yes. So you said that you still didn't really have a relationship with God. Were you attending church at all during this time?
No, I wasn't. No.
Okay. Okay. So you got to a point where you said, God, I am tired.
Yes.
This is just way too much. Talk about
Mhm.
that.
I remember one morning I was taking a shower. Well, that same morning, I received a call from my family in Guyana, and they said one of my cousins died in childbirth. And
Mm,
after airing the news, I went and take a shower. And I remember standing in the shower, and I was crying out to the Lord, because I didn't want my kids to see me crying, because I have to be strong for them. So one of the
mm,
places I would always go cry is in the bathroom. So I remember taking a shower, and I said, God, I'm tired. I'm so tired. And the Lord said to me, that I think I've heard the Lord's voice clearly. And he said,
mm,
I'm going to show you where tired people go. So he was referring to my cousin that had just died. So I said,
mm.
no, God, I don't want to die.
I don't want,
I said, please,
I want to
can you
die.
just help me? Can you just help me? But he heard
Yeah.
my cry. He heard my cry.
Mm, mm. So you said at some point, you even in all of this, God is still providing, right, for your
Yes,
children. He's
yes,
still making ways out of no ways. But at some point, I believe you said that your sister encouraged you to
yes.
get on a prayer call.
Hmm.
And you were kind of like, no, I don't want to do that. But you did it. So
Yes.
talk about that.
Um, I was going through, some stuff at that time. Really didn't want to be bothered because with the apartment, it was so narrow and it was kind of challenging to get any furniture in the apartment because mind you, when we came with nothing. So now we're trying to build.
Yeah.
And my sister, she called me and she said, there's a prayer line that I think you should. And I'm like, I don't want to hear nothing about no prayer line right now. Please, I am going through. So she was
Mm-hmm.
like, I think you should try it. But she did not give up. She keep calling. Did you get on? Did you? I'm like, no. Did you get on? I'm like, no. She's like, I think you should try even listening to the record. And I listened to the recording one day and it blessed me that the next time the prayer line came on, I decided I'm just going to go on. At that time, I mean, I was tired, weary, but I wasn't telling God I was tired. It didn't come out of my mouth again because I remember what he said. So
What he said.
I, I I got on the call that morning. I felt so heavy in my spirit. And um, I I listened to the call, and that on that morning, the woman of God was talking about children, how children are a blessing, and and they're a gift from God. And at that time, I was going through so much. I didn't see the kids as a blessing. I I was going through to the point is like I'm like God, I don't even want to be bothered with being a mother right now. I really didn't want to be bothered. I didn't want to hear their voice. But that call that morning, oh, it did something to me. And, at the end of the call, she said, if anyone need prayer, just reach out to me. So she gave her number and I was kind of hesitant, but I called. And when I called, she prayed with me. And she said to me, she said, whenever you need me, just call. And that woman of God, I mean, she became my spiritual mom. Last year she went on to be with the Lord, but it was so sad. But that woman, the Lord used that woman to birth something out of me, something that I didn't
Yeah.
even know I was carrying. It had times I
Yeah.
would get on the prayer line and she would say, Stacey, can you pray? I'm like, what? 4 kids? Like, really? And then
I
sometimes
don't have the
then
time.
that's what I was saying. You know, there was no preparation the night before, or no, when I get on the call, Stacey, can you pray? Or the Lord says, Stacey, for you to pray. And I'm like, oh my God. But she would always tell me that I remind her of herself because she has 4 kids, that time she had 4 kids. So she was like, you remind me so much of myself. I know the struggle, but the Lord used her to push me into purpose, whether I liked it or not.
Wow.
So from that time, I started seeking the Lord more because on the prayer line, you wasn't only praying, you had to bring the word. So I had to get in the presence of God to bring the word. It was like push, like there's no way out of this. So now I started having conversation with the Lord. I started praying more. I started seeking his face more. So the Lord definitely used her. So I have no regrets of getting on that prayer line. I wasn't happy at that time, but God worked that out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And around what age are you at this point?
I was about, I want to say 33.
Okay. Around 33. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So you are now growing in your relationship with God.
yes,
And your eyes are just now open to just, wow, God, you have a purpose for me. And you mentioned that you were growing in your prayer life. You became an intercessor.
yes.
Did you at any point begin to introduce God to your children as well?
Yes. We started
Mm.
having a Bible study. I would pray with them. So they recognize that mom has changed because now she's someone totally different. So I didn't hide it from them. I mean, I would go to my job and I didn't hide it. I had a bag of books because where I used to work at, I had the freedom where because of my office was basically a car, just sit in a car and I was checking vehicles when they come in.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the freedom and I would pray
Mm-hmm.
and would read the word and I would encourage the employees and it's like the Lord had me on assignment at that job. Even customers that come in, I would encourage them, pray with them. Sometimes they'll approach
Mm-hmm.
me and start opening up and telling me their history and I'm like, okay, it's like I don't know you. Why am I even letting things out, but the Lord would allow them so that I can pray
Yeah.
for them. They didn't know what they were
Yeah.
doing, but the Lord knew what they were doing.
The Lord knew. Wow. 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 Okay. So at some point, you said that you began interceding for your boss.
Yes.
And you didn't say you said that a part of your prayer was, um, God, let them find somewhere else to
Yes.
work, right? So
Yes.
talk about that.
After giving birth to the fourth child, I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to, for her, I asked her to switch my schedule because coming home at 11, sometime 11:30 at night, picking up the kids, and at that time he was 6 weeks. And
Mm-hmm.
I asked her, I said, well, can I just switch my schedule temporary? I said, I'm not asking for the schedule to be permanent, but can I come in a little earlier? I said, I'll even stay until 8 p.m. I said, but I don't really want to have a young baby out so late at night. And she said,
Yeah.
no. She said, I can't do that. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So I
Wow.
have I called my sister, the same one that referred me to the prayer line. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, we're going to have to pray about this. So we
Mm-hmm.
started praying, and our prayers were specific because I learned from my first lesson, but I need to be specific in my prayer. So I started
Mm-hmm.
asking the Lord, I said, God, just move her. I don't want her to lose her job, but just
Mm-hmm.
find someplace else for her to go because something needs to change here. And
Mm-hmm.
God answered our prayers. It had time that she before God even moved her, she would come and she would cry out to me and I would pray for her. I would pray and
Mm-hmm.
ask the Lord to touch her, move in, whatever situation, because the job was beginning to get a little hectic for her, and she would cry out and I would pray, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, but
Hmm.
I watched the Lord how he moved. When he moved her, she was so happy. He provided a
Wow.
position what she always wanted. So
Mm-hmm.
she moved and the Lord opened up a
Hmm.
door for another manager to come because that first manager, she wasn't flexible at all. Like just get the job done. She wasn't putting in for no increase of pay for any of the
Hmm.
employees. So I was raising at that time 4 kids off of I think it was like $11.05. Only God knew how I did it.
Wow.
But when I
Wow.
moved to Pennsylvania, I was able to apply for unemployment, not unemployment, but food stamps. So that helped
Mm-hmm.
me, and
Mm-hmm.
I was able to apply for Title C, which is like assistance with for daycare, and that
Mm-hmm.
came through. So God did His thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, after
Hmm.
he moved someone else in. The person
Mm-hmm.
came in and, she put in for an increase of pay for everyone across the board. She was more family oriented. So whenever I had to leave to take my kids maybe to doctor's appointment or pick them up early from school, she was flexible. Okay, just go ahead. And I
Mm-hmm.
watched how
Mm-hmm.
the Lord did it because this woman had to drive an hour and a half every day, just one way to get to work, and an hour and a half back to get home. So I would
Wow.
pray for her, and she didn't know I was interceding, but sometimes
Right.
she'll just come and tell me some stuff, and and
Mm-hmm.
I would just pray, and she didn't know, but she knew that I was a woman of God because I didn't hide it. You could come to the
Mm.
car and I'm staying there reading my Bible because that's
Mm-hmm.
just who I am. So
Right.
the Lord definitely did his thing. He allowed someone else to come in
Wow.
and bless me across the
Wow. And let me just say that was so humbling of you to pray with her and intercede for her
Yes.
because she didn't provide any type of change for you
No,
that you were seeking, right?
it's true. It's
But
true.
you were humble enough to do what God was leading you to do for her.
Yes.
And a door opened up for her.
Yes.
So, and of course, you know, as well as a new manager coming in, understanding your situation and allowing you to change your schedule. But
It's true.
that just reminds me of an elder at my church. She said that her boss was just, oh my gosh, was just
Mm.
crazy. And the way that she treated her was really bad. But God told her, you need to intercede for her.
Yeah.
And so she did. And she said at some point, the Holy Spirit told her to stop
Mm.
because her prayers were actually protecting her. And God said, now she needs
Mm.
to learn a lesson. So I need you to
Yes.
stop interceding.
Yes.
And I thought, wow. And eventually she did end up, I guess, losing her job. And now
Hmm.
she has the elder at my church. She has another boss now. But the power of intercession,
Very powerful.
very powerful. Yeah.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
thought about that when you were speaking. Now, I want you to talk about breakthrough. Uh, when did you experience it? Was it around the time that you began to grow in your relationship with God? Talk about that.
It was to well, it actually I still didn't know at that time when I got my breakthrough. I My relationship wasn't really strong and sturdy. Um, at that time when I experienced the breakthrough, my breakthrough came when my fourth child was born. And I remember being in the hospital and, you know, I applied for the Title 20 to get the assistance. And they told me that, it's about 6 months, wait, 6 months to a year, she said, that is,
Mm,
you got to wait. It's a waiting list. And I'm like, okay, God, how am I going to do it? Because
right.
pretty soon I'm going to have to go on disability. I'm gonna have to pay the rent. There's things there's food that needs to be provided. There's things that
Mm-hmm.
need to be done. And I'm like, three kids, like none of them is old enough to be home to watch the other. So all three
Yeah.
of them have to go to daycare. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
God, you need to do something. Again, I'm asking him, and I don't really know him,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Lord, well, when I went into the hospital, I was told that I need to call once the baby is born, the weight, give them the
Mm-hmm.
information, the name and stuff. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember speaking to the woman, and she said, "Okay, I'll put everything down." And I was like, "How long is the wait?" She's like, "Oh, you're still on the waiting list. It's still about 6 months to a year." I'm like, "Okay." So
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think it's 20 minutes after that she called me back and she said, you have been approved for the Title 20. And I'm like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
I was so excited because here I am being concerned, like, God, how am I going to take care of three kids, one
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
way, being out of work?
Mm-hmm.
So God allowed me
Mm-hmm.
to experience breakthrough that time, because when that happened, things began to fall in place. Um, I spoke to my social worker and I asked her, I was just led to ask, I was like, is there any assistance for someone who just had a baby and is home and have no income coming in? And she was like, oh
Mm-hmm.
yes, you can apply for this program. You can get it once every year or once every 2 years, something like that, she said.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. So I applied and I was approved and I got a check for 3,000 some to cover me
Wow.
for my entire length of time that I was home
Wow.
and more. So not only did God bless me with the daycare, but he blessed me with a check. So I didn't even have to worry about the
Wow.
rent. And then I had the food stamp at that time. So I didn't have to worry about food. I didn't have to worry about rent.
Yeah.
I didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
worry about daycare, but God did it all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was my
Wow.
point of breakthrough.
Wow. Wow. You also shared with me how when your schedule changed,
Yes.
when you got a new manager,
Mhm.
how it also changed your children. You
Yes.
saw like a change in them. So talk
Mhm.
about that.
Well, at that time, once the schedule changed, most kids want to be home with their parents, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
um with the schedule change, they were happy to see me home at night, because then they don't have to come in late at night, bringing them home at 11, sometime 11:30, depending on,
Mhm.
me putting everything together at my job quickly to come and get them, and then waking them up at 6:30 in the morning. That's not even a full
Mhm.
8 hour sleep. So they were
Wow.
restless, they were tired
Wow.
in the morning, but
Mhm.
mommy got to do what she got to do. So
Right,
it
right.
brought joy to them to see me at home at night. They were excited. And
Mhm.
even at that time, I now got a relationship with the Lord. So we were having Bible studies on
Mhm.
Wednesday night. I would teach them the word of the Lord. I teach them how to pray. So it was like
Mhm.
a bond at that time.
Mhm.
What I never was able
Mhm.
to do with them before, I was able to because of the change of schedule.
Wow. Wow. And I'm just thinking, had you never got on that prayer call and had your relationship never took off, you would have never interceded for your boss. So who knows? Your schedule may have never changed,
That's true.
you
That's true.
know? So
That's true.
wow. Wow. Now at
Sometimes
some
we don't
point,
know.
yeah, yeah. At some point you end your relationship
Hmm.
with your now husband.
Yeah.
So what led to that? And when you started taking your relationship with God serious, did you share with him? Well, he obviously saw because your children saw, but
Yes.
what were his thoughts? Did he begin to change at all? And what led to you guys breaking up?
Well, when he saw well, before the change came, we had already separated because
Okay.
he was tired of traveling back and forth. And
Mm-hmm.
I was getting tired and aggravated. So it's like, okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
let's just go our separate ways. So he went
Mm-hmm.
his separate way and I went my separate way. So at that time I was just all God. I'm like, Lord, just have your way. I don't want no man. I just want to devote myself completely to you. And the Lord
Uh-huh.
God showed me things, and my relationship and bond with the Lord was so strong. It's like I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
anything to interrupt it. The Lord reveal
Mm-hmm.
himself in such a way that I did not even think or imagine. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember after just being a single mom, people would see me come in and out, and all they would do is just hear me pray. And I remember this one neighbor, he was telling his friend that
Uh-huh.
I've never heard a young person pray as much as you do. You be praying day and night. I mean, because it was just me and the kids. So,
Yeah.
but I was serious. I was really serious for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
about a year and a half after me and my now husband had broken up, um,
Mm-hmm.
I remember the Lord telling me, he said, this is your husband. And he's like, first time he come, that's not it. The second time, that's it. But our first time and
Mm-hmm.
second time, is totally different. But the Lord
Mm-hmm.
connected us, and here we are, married.
Wow. Wow. So that's a blessing.
And
That's a blessing. So you guys are married,
yeah.
and you guys are both growing in the Lord together at this point.
Well, I'm growing, but he's getting there.
He's getting
He's
there.
getting
Okay,
there.
he's getting there. So, you're back together now, and
Yeah.
talk about just how now being married has made a difference with raising children, because you were doing it by yourself for so long, and now you're married. Did you notice any difference?
I have, for me, for being a single mother for so many years, it was
Mm-hmm.
challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Because with a single mother, you're left to make the decision on your own. You don't have to consult, anyone else. You just
Mm-hmm.
okay, the kids need to do this. So it was a challenge for me. I had to learn and still am learning because, you
Mm-hmm.
know, even when we get married, you're a single mother before, that single woman mentality has to go. And it's a challenge. It's a struggle because you've been doing it for so long, it become
Right.
a habit. It now become a part of you. So, you know,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I want to make decision on my own, and I'm Lord, like, no, you can't. You got to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right.
but it
Right.
was definitely a challenge at first, but I'm learning how, you know, I don't
Mm-hmm.
have it down packed as of yet, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning how to communicate things and not just make decision on my own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's completely understandable because, like you said, you've been doing it so long by yourself.
Yes.
And now you have to learn how to do these things with someone else.
Yes.
And I think that speaks to any single person who becomes married. I mean, you're single for most of your life until you get married,
Yeah.
you know? So
Mm-hmm.
you have to learn how
Yes.
to do life with your spouse.
That's true.
So completely
That's true.
understandable. Um Now your oldest child, your daughter,
Yes.
you shared with me how she has just pressed through, her being the oldest. She's seen a lot of your struggle. She
Mm-hmm.
shared in some of your struggle, but she
Yes.
has pressed through, and you're so just very proud of her
Yeah.
at this point. So talk just a little bit about just about her, and just how proud you are of your daughter.
I mean, she's amazing, an amazing young woman. She's now 19. She is in her second year of college, but even with what she saw me went through, you know, the encouragement, even being a young child, you know, mom, it's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
okay, God got you, or always in the encouragement was always there. But she didn't allow what I was going through to affect her studies. In high school,
Mm-hmm.
she actually did her she did 2 years of college in high school. So that basically cut
Mm-hmm.
half of her college time in that she have to do, right, you know, to finish
Mm-hmm.
her
Mm-hmm.
masters. So
Mm-hmm.
God really did it for her. I mean,
Yeah.
he is just showing up and showing out, and I know that he'll continue to bless her because there's nothing like a mother's prayer. There's nothing like a
Yeah.
mother's prayer, but she encourages me, and even now she encourages me, and it's good to see, you know, what I imparted in her. That is, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it wasn't for naught, because sometimes when you pour into your kids and you don't see it at the time that you expect it to, you're thinking, oh, they
Mm-hmm.
ain't hear me, they're not understanding me. But my
Mm-hmm.
spiritual mom always said, she said, the seed has been planted, just continue to watch, water it, and watch it grow. So, you know, when we're planting the seed in our kids, we don't see it at that time, but it's
Mm-hmm.
guaranteed to manifest. It has to grow, you know. So with her just seeing me being a single mom and the struggle, it made her make better choices, because then she'll say, Mom,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have children out of wedlock. I'm going to wait until I'm married. And
Mm-hmm.
I always try to
Mm-hmm.
be honest enough with them. You see my struggles, try to make better decisions. Don't do what I do.
Yeah.
I want a better life for
Mm-hmm.
you. You know, so I was
Mm-hmm.
open with them, very open. Even until this day, I'm
Mm-hmm.
very open with
Yeah. Wow. And is that with all of your children? At least the ones who are mature enough to understand? Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's awesome.
yes.
And how old was your daughter when you began doing Bible studies at home and those kinds of things?
She was about 11, about
She
10,
was
11.
around 11.
Mm-hmm.
I asked that because, there wasn't a foundation there at first. But
Yes.
you said that she was still able to focus in school.
Mm-hmm.
She was still able to, encourage you as a young child and say, Mom, it's going to be okay. Not having
Yes,
that foundation there.
that's
So I'm
true.
just saying how God has just been there, before he was
Yeah,
there, if I can say it that way,
that's true. That's
before
true.
you invited him in. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what a testament, what a testimony you have in your daughter and all of your children. all of your children.
Yes.
So I love that. I love that. Just talk about, what have you learned the most about yourself, the old you, prior to giving your life to God, prior to getting married. What have you learned the most about yourself?
I can say that what I've learned is I can't do anything with God. Many times we try to do things on our own, but if we include God, it makes things so much easier. I was trying to do it on my own, but even though I didn't know God was there, he was in the back, he was in the background, and he was putting things together, so
Yeah.
it lets me know that God is concerned, he's concerned about everything, and he makes
Mm,
ways where seems to be no way. Looking
mm,
back at my life, I can say that it had to be God, because there's no way that I could have made it this far without God. He's always working behind the scene, whether we recognize it or not. Like you mentioned earlier, he reigns on the just as well as on the unjust. You know, it's a difference when you're in a
mm,
relationship with him. You tend to recognize, okay, God, this is you. But when you're not in a
mm-hmm.
relationship, you may think that, oh, it's luck. No,
Right,
it's
right.
God. But
Mm-hmm.
now when
It's
you're in a
God.
relationship, you
Mm-hmm.
know who to turn the who to turn the praise to, who to turn the worship to,
Mm-hmm.
because we know there ain't no such thing as luck for the Christians, but it's all God
Right.
working behind the
It's all
scene,
God.
putting this together. So I've learned to
Yes.
just totally depend on him. Totally depend on him.
Yes. 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 Now, were your parents saved at all? Did they have a relationship with the Lord?
No, no.
I asked that because I don't know how far back as far as saved grandparents or saved great grandparents or whatnot.
Yes.
But I think about you. You do know as far as if your grandparents or great grandparents were saved.
They weren't. I don't know who
They
stand in the gap
weren't.
and prayed for me, but somebody
That's
did.
and that's what I'm thinking about. Yes, that's what I'm thinking about. I don't know where I heard it, but it was something said to the effect of, you know, just because they're dead doesn't mean that their prayers are. You
True.
know,
That's
those
true.
prayers are still active. And I think about generations before us, or even how we pray today.
Yeah.
We pray for our children and our children's children and generations after. Those prayers are effective when
Yes, it
they
is.
come into this world.
That's true. That's
So
true.
who knows who was praying for you all those years ago for
That's
God's
so true.
provision and protection over your life?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
But
I
I
don't know.
like
That just came to me.
that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. I haven't even thought of that. But
Yeah.
God knows exactly what he's doing, because even when you may feel like nobody is praying, nobody is there, God already set things and put things in place. And when
Mm-hmm.
he bring us in, now we gotta turn back and bring someone else in. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
for us to be saved and that's it. He wants us to bring
Mm-hmm.
others in as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Absolutely. How do you not dwell on the old Stacey? Now that you are new, God has brought so much restoration and renewal and change into your life. How do you not dwell on your past mistakes and who you used to be?
Um, I continue to look to God. And then when I see my children, it caused me to forget about the things that I've been through, because we say we have, there's things that we've been through and we have scars to show it. But when I look at my children, whatever I've been through, it was worth it just for them, because I see their beautiful smile, and I'm just, to me, I look at, now I can truly say I see kids as a blessing, because
Yeah.
I was not worth to have kids, you know, because of my past and what I've done and what, but God saw fit. a blessing to be a mom. So when I look at my kids, all of what I've been through, I can say was worth it. And I won't dwell
Mm.
on what I've been through. I would look at it as that was a stepping stone to get me to where I am. Because if I didn't went through
Mm.
the things that I've been through, I probably won't be here. So it
Right.
was all to
That's
build me
right.
up, to make me a better mother, to make me a better wife, to
Mm.
make me a better intercessor, because somebody has to go through it to help someone else. So I look at it, well, okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
the one that been through to help someone else.
Yep. Wow. 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 Absolutely. Absolutely. I want you to name the ages or say the ages of your children.
I have a 19-year-old, 15-year-old, 11, a 9, and a 6-year-old.
Wow. 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 What a blessing. And you have
Yeah.
how many sons and how many daughters?
I have 3 boys and 2 girls.
Three boys and two girls.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. What a blessing. What a blessing.
Yes, it is.
Well, thank you so much, Stacey, for just sharing just a portion of your story. And I hope that it truly, truly reaches whoever it's supposed to reach. But I do know that single moms out there will definitely be blessed, and married moms out there will be blessed as well to hear what you've shared today. And before we close, I do want you to share anything that's on your heart, any advice, any encouragement that you have for others who are in your shoes.
I would encourage single mothers not to give up, continue to press, continue to trust God, even to the ones that don't know God. God will put people in your life to pray you through. Whether you know they're praying or not, God will put people in your life to pray you through. Continue to stay focused, because as single mothers, we become sometimes so overwhelmed in our situation, and sometimes our situation it gets the best of us, where we can't focus, where we can't do the things that we need to do, and sometimes we can't even love on the children the way that they need to be loved, because of being a single parent. It's not easy, but it's doable, because God said he would never give us more than we can bear. And when you look at the kids, just look at them as a blessing, because someone wants what you have. And it's not always the way we want it to, but God knows best. So I would definitely encourage them, continue to be strong. I know sometimes you may worry, but one of the things that I always try to remember is they won't stay small forever. They will
Mm-hmm.
grow, because I've watched. I'm like, Lord, I remember the days when, in order for me to go anywhere, I have to ask people to watch them. Now I've gotten to the point where I can just go out, because then they're old enough to take care of their younger siblings. So know that it won't
Mm-hmm.
always be this way. Know that they
Mm-hmm.
will get older, and you just continue to just continue to trust God, continue to love on them and embrace them. And don't look at it's just temporary. It's just a temporary situation. Don't allow your temporary situation to overtake you where God wants to take you. And for the couple, just continue to allow the Lord to use you. It's a
Yeah.
blessing to be married. It's a blessing when because I looked at my fifth child, and it's such a covering when you see a child is birth into a marriage, right? God promised
Yeah.
us that, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at it, I'm like, wow, God God is amazing. So I encourage you to trust God, trust God, trust God, be
Mm-hmm.
encouraged, love on your spouse, and even if you're praying for your spouse, continue to pray. Don't give up, because we serve a God that hears and a God that answers, and he is concerned. That's what I wanted to
Yeah.
say.
Yes, yes. I love it. I love it. Wow, wow. Well, yeah. Thank you again just so much for sharing. And you've been a blessing to me in my life. The way that God allowed us to connect through my grandma
Yes.
um, has just been a blessing. And I'm just recalling conversations we've had, whether it's been over the phone or via text. You've definitely just been a blessing to me. And I want to say thank you for allowing God to use you for me. And I just pray for continued blessings over you and your husband and your children, your finances, and all of those things. And I can't wait to hear just all that God has in store, the greater things that God has in store for you and your family. So,
Amen.
so yes, thank you, Stacey. This has been great. For those of you who don't
Propitiation.
know, yes, for those of you who don't know, we've had quite a bit of technical difficulties before we started this today, but that means it's supposed to reach somebody who really needs to hear this. So
Amen.
that's how I'm going to look at it. But before we do close, I want you to go ahead and shout out your business. Go ahead and share a little bit about what your business is about.
I have a Christian apparel t-shirt line, and we actually have from babies all the way to mother, father, so it's the entire family.
Please do support her business. And I just want to say again, thank you, Stacey, for taking the time to be willing and available. And I hope to talk after this to see to see how you feel.
Okay.
but yeah, thank you again, and thank you everyone for tuning into this episode. I hope that you were blessed and encouraged, and I want you to be sure to like it and comment on something that stood out to you. Share it with someone that they may be blessed, and if you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe to the channel Breakthrough Conversations. Until next time, everyone, be blessed and have a wonderful day.